Hi, everyone, goddammit. I keep forgetting to turn on my microphone. Hello. I'm live again. It's starting to become second nature to me slowly, very slowly, as you can probably tell from my very skillful managing of my microphone. Hello, my dear viewers, my dear fans. This is a semi-regular segment in which I talk about the Swedish election, which was almost 3 months ago, and we know the results. We still don't have a government, and I'm going to talk about some news regarding that because it's fun, and it gives me something to do. So every week, basically, it comes out new news, and it's not a lot of time big news, so it's not every week, but I try to collect like the important bits. So if you want to know about Swedish politics, this is the way to go. Let me know if sound and stuff works. Hello. Hello everyone. Hello. If something is not working, let me know and I will fix it. I will make an attempt to fix it, rather. The volume up? Yeah. The reason the volume is so low is because I have my microphone very far away, actually. I was hoping it would work. And that should be better, I think. Should be, at least. I was hoping that, because I've been recording my video today, I can actually start with that, start with some news about the channel and myself. I've had a really good couple of few days right now, and it's been pretty good. So I've actually been recording a video. I'm like the Sweden video. It's about Sweden and the international focus on Sweden for a bit, and I've been hyping it up now for over 6 months, so I hope it's still good. I hope it's like acceptable, but it's actually humming along like pretty good because I'm having a couple of good days and I don't see an end to this. Like normally when I feel better, I know that like, oh well, tomorrow I'll feel like shit again, but everything's coming up Millhouse. And that's why my microphone was far away, because it's been in another portion of my room where I record. If it comes up before you get a government upload count, exactly. And actually, judging from current events, that might happen. My goal is that the video is going to come out early next week, and if everything goes good, that's probably going to happen again. No promises, my health could still take a dive and be completely destroyed. So I don't want to give anyone too much hope, but everything is looking pretty good, so I'm giving myself hope. Which might backfire, hopefully it won't. And I don't see us getting a government this year even, actually, because it's been chaos, right? Okay. So some backstory. Sweden has pretty much like 3 different ideologies of coalitions of ideologies, right? We have the socialist liberal bloc, we have the conservative liberal bloc, and then we have the reactionary bloc or the fascist bloc, which is just one party, and that's the Sweden Democrats. And that's the background, right? Now, normally in an election, you can scrape together a coalition that kind of agrees with your like standpoint, enough to form a majority. But in Sweden and in many other countries, we have reached a point where, like in this recent election, for example, the socialist leftist bloc got around 40%. The conservative liberal bloc got around 37%, so less. And the rest went to the Sweden Democrats. But that's not, none of those sides have a majority. And that's the situation we're in now, and that's what's been causing this entire world of hurt. And it's been awful. The Speaker of the House, however, has been elected. We have a Speaker of our House of Representatives, or Parliament, or whatever you want to call it. It's hard to translate. Our Reichstag, our Riksdag, and it's been like he was elected using support from the Sweden Democrats, which sucks. But it's enough to put him there. He's a conservative speaker, despite the conservative bloc being not the largest bloc, which sucks, but hey, that's democracy. And his job, and has been for the last almost 3 months, has been to try to form a government of Sweden. And he has failed at that job. And it's not his fault, actually. The speaker is supposed to be a pretty like non-partisan boy, and he has failed. First, he gave the conservative leader an attempt to make something, and not well. I think first he gave the former prime minister an attempt to form a government, right? To try to get enough support somewhere to get a majority government, because we need a majority government. We've had a minority government now for 4 years, and it's been pretty okay, but people are tired of it. People are, especially on the right, are tired of living under minority rule, I guess. And especially the Sweden Democrats, because no one is going to talk to the Sweden Democrats, despite them having seats in a parliament. And that's the backstory, right? So, the Speaker of the House has 4 tries to put up a candidate for Prime Minister in Parliament and for a vote in Parliament. He has 4 attempts, and if he fails at all those 4 attempts, if the candidate gets too many down votes, no, he is he's rejected, and if that happens 4 times, then we need another election, which is undesirable and is undemocratic, in my opinion. But that's a topic for a video. The situation right now has been that the conservative leader had an attempt to try to form a government. He failed. The socialist leader has tried to form a government. He failed. The speaker then decided to just say, fuck it, let's not try. Let's just put the conservative minister to a vote and see what happens. Because the conservative bloc, together with the Sweden Democrats, could form a majority. So the idea was that maybe the Sweden Democrats, which are far-right extremists, would support the conservative leader and kind of form a conservative, reactionary, but also slightly liberal bloc, because they also need the liberal part of this liberal conservative coalition. But he failed also, because the liberal part of the bloc decided that, well, a government like that is going to be dependent on the Sweden Democrats, because the conservative bloc is smaller than the socialist part. So the only way to win over the socialist coalition is to get support from the fascists. And the liberal parts of that coalition decided, well, that's not fun, that's not desirable, we don't want that. Which is an interesting turn to proper liberalism, I guess, where they actually did not want to do that. Unfortunately, the Swedish electorate is kind of blaming them and saying that they are undemocratic, but I don't know, that's weird. So, all of that has happened. And I've talked about that in other videos. So the news then, the new bits. The speaker has moved on to the 4th largest party, not the 3rd largest party, because the 3rd largest party is the Sweden Democrats. And no one talked to them still, which is good. So he moved on to the 4th most popular party, which is the Center Party, which is a liberal party, and has asked the party leader of that party to try to form a government, and she failed too. After trying to kind of get some either some like very broad coalition between the Social Democrats and the Conservatives, but they're incompatible, or kind of get some, maybe get the Environmental Party on board, but that's not enough support. So that's been going on. So she failed. And now we've reached the point where the speaker is gonna take the former Prime Minister, Stefan Löfven, from the Social Democrat Party, up to another brute force vote, right? The second try of 4 to try to just make him Prime Minister. And if they vote yes, then he just becomes Prime Minister. When he won't have to tell like the people what kind of government he's gonna have or what kind of support he's gonna have. And many of the talks that are currently ongoing are kind of secret, which is concerning. So that is the situation we're in right now. By all indications, this vote, it hasn't happened yet. Like, we know that the former Prime Minister is going to be put up for a vote. But the vote hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen next week, I think. And when it happens, it's most likely going to fail. Because the Sweden Democrats has only said that they're only going to support a candidate which gives them power. And they supported the Conservative leader, who promised that, and he only failed because the Liberals ducked out. The Social Democrats have made like a big point over the election campaign and over the months since that they will not at all cooperate with the Sweden Democrats, that they would rather work with the Liberals. That could work. It's not going to be very good for like Sweden's welfare institutions, which are like fairly socialist, and the Liberal parties are kind of trying to dismantle them, and that sucks. And they used to be part of the Conservative bloc. However, a socialist liberal coalition led by the socialists, you know what? That's better than a right-wing government, and that's better than a fascist coalition government. It's not good, in my opinion, but it's something. It works. So the vote next week then might come down to if the leader of the Social Democrats has convinced enough people on the liberal side to kind of break the coalition on the right. And if they do that, that's going to be incredible. That's going to mean that the right-wing coalition is dead, which means that we will have a left-wing coalition and then just a bunch of parties that are unified, which historically has been in the left's favor. And you can see why, obviously. But the reason we have coalitions in the first place in Sweden is that, especially this right-wing coalition, is to just break the power hegemony of the Social Democrats, which have ruled Sweden more than any other party and had it for like the longest point in succession, sometimes having their own majority. And this isn't America. This isn't we don't have 2 political parties. We have like 8. And that's just in like national elections. We also have local elections, and we have local parties. But in like for a long time of Swedish democracy, the Social Democrats have dominated Swedish politics. So the alliance only exists to counter that. So while a socialist liberal government might be okay now, there are a lot of people that are worried that in the long term this is just going to be a return to socialist, to just socialism. But I don't think that. I think that things are just gonna happen. I don't actually think the theory of the liberal socialist coalition is gonna work, because I don't think the liberal parties want to do that. I think they prefer another election, which sucks, because if the vote fails, then we are halfway through. Then we have 2 more attempts to try to find a candidate until we have to have an extra election, which is not great. Yeah, That is the deal right now. If I have to make a prediction, I think that we won't have a government this year, and I don't think we're gonna have a government until like spring. This is the largest democratic crisis in Swedish history, in modern Swedish history. Right, we've had other crises before, like during the World Wars, and before people could vote. But like in modern Swedish history, this has never happened. This is unheard of. It's incredible that this is happening. That's where we are, and I think it's just gonna get worse. I think it's gonna get significantly worse. Do we have any questions about the horror that is current Swedish politics? Right now, though, it's not like super bad. Like, it's only the right-wing coalition that is having a hissy fit because they're trying to take power, but they're the smallest bloc, so they're having a bunch of articles and having to go on the defensive a lot, while the Social Democrats can just shut the fuck up because they are the largest party. So as long as they just shut the fuck up, they're not gonna fuck up, and people are just gonna give them more legitimacy, I guess. And it seems to be working. Like, sympathies for the social democrats has gone up, as well for the left party and the environmental party. The entire left coalition has received a boost, while the conservative parties have lost support, but mostly to the Sweden Democrats, who are weird currently. Well, there was what my grandmother said when she read about this on Facebook, but it's nonsensical. So I can imagine international media being like super weird about this. I haven't actually seen that much of it, but that I haven't really like been on non-Swedish media for a while now. I can imagine though, like the research that I did for the video, and the research I'm still kind of doing for the video that I'm shooting today, since it's about like the portrayal of Sweden in international media, I can 100% like suspect that it's a fascinating thing. Plus, it's unique in like in Nordic history. Like, unless we're talking about like parliamentary crisis in Norway 100 years ago, but that's just because they wanted to be like independent from Sweden. What's the chance that there could be another election? Significantly high. I would bet that unless something destroys coalition politics in Sweden, which is extremely unlikely, it's almost guaranteed to go for an extra election. Almost guaranteed. The current political parties that are in parliament are so incompatible with each other in almost every single way, and there's a lot of cases where like election promises and election rhetoric has kind of sabotaged them in current negotiations, because like you have the Sweden Democrats, which are on the far right, and then you have the left party, which is on the far left, and because of this alone, some people, mostly in the liberal parties, have said that, well, we're not going to cooperate with the extremist parties to kind of delegitimize the left party, but they're like they cannot be compared. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe, when the left party was like outspokenly communist, but they're not that anymore. And the only reforms that they've like championed for and actually like gone through parliament and in the budget and everything, because they are supporting the former government and the current interim government. The only ones they've done is like, free, cheaper medicines and better access to optic healthcare and better dental care and environmental reforms that are pretty good. Like they're just nice now. They're actually social. They're proper social democrats compared to the Social Democrat Party, which is more socially liberal. And because of this, a lot of liberal parties have kind of shot themselves in the foot because they talked shit about the left party during the entire election cycle. And now, when they actually like, the only way to properly get into power would be to kind of join the left coalition. But the left coalition includes the left party, and they have said for months now that they hate the Left Party, and therefore they are even more incompatible than they are ideologically, and they already are pretty incompatible. So I would say, like, unless something radical happens, I think that the chance for another election is at least 50%, which is way too high. A month ago, I would probably say lower, but at the second try is soon, and by all indications, it's gonna fail. Unless a center party, like the largest of the liberal parties, just jumps ship and decides to join the left bloc, which would be mind-boggling. I don't see the Social Democrats forming a government next week. It would require betrayal from the liberal parties, and they are already under a lot of flack for not supporting the conservative government. Does another election favor the left or the right more, would you say? The right, but not the right coalition. I would say that it would mostly favor the Sweden Democrats, and I think that another election would almost guarantee that the Sweden Democrats would become the second largest party in Swedish politics and surpass the current Conservative Party. The Left Party would probably get some support too, because they have been, the entire left coalition has remained professional during this entire thing and hasn't had the implosions that the right-wing coalition has had. And the left would either remain the way they are or gain a little bit. They wouldn't get a surge of support. Maybe the Left Party, but that's because they have been more outspoken. They have been more radical in their policy and in their rhetoric. But I think that it would favor the Sweden Democrats more, a lot more. Opinion polls in Sweden recently have shown that just by polling, when we're not even halfway to another extra election, sympathies for the Sweden Democrats has risen by 2%. Like the good polls, at least, the ones that had accurate predictions for the election. And that sucks. And almost like everyone is agreed that another election would just make people frustrated, and frustration is what drives far right extremism. So people are just agreed that if another election would destroy the right-wing coalition and significantly weaken the left coalition. The only reason the left coalition could even survive that is just because it's historically stronger and is currently stronger. And the Social Democrats are the largest party, and they're going to remain to be the largest party literally forever. The Swedish Social Democrats it's a mastodon of a party. Like when people talk about like political parties, in a democracy at least, the Social Democrats has everyone beat. Like you'd have to go to one-party states to find more secure parties than the Social Democrats in Sweden, which is probably one of the reasons why like far-right YouTubers who talk about Sweden consider them to be like dictatorial, which is absurd. They're just insanely popular because they built Sweden from next to extreme poverty 100 years ago into being one of the more prosperous nations in the world. And just by that, like the Social Democrats had an extremely large part in that, and that makes them extremely popular. They also did some weird shit. They did in the 60s and 50s. They did some weird shit. But like all parties in the 50s did that. Things are looking really bad. Yep. Tough times always make the right go stronger. So if Löfven fails now, it's almost guaranteed to be a right-wing government. Not necessarily. I think that people kind of suspected that maybe the conservative government could form a government when he was put onto a vote. No one has any expectations on Löfven, on the Social Democrats. No one has any expectations that he's gonna fix it. No one expects that. Going into this vote, they expect him to fix it in other ways, but he does not. Like no one expects him to fix it in this vote, and I think that if and when he fails, because I think he will fail, I think that people won't blame him for it, which is weird. But I think that people, respect him more than they respect the right-wing coalition. And opinion polls support this. So it's just that he has this. He's basically been silent ever since the election, saying that, we'd like to work with the Liberals, and that's fine. And that's all he's been saying, basically, while the right-wing coalition has imploded into itself. Like when the Liberal parties did not support the Conservative-only government and a government of only Conservatives, when the Liberals didn't support that due to a implied support from the Sweden Democrats, the right-wing coalition was almost declared dead immediately, and high-ranking party members started like throwing out really bad things on social media, really poisoning the water. So relations aren't really good in the right-wing coalition. And I don't think that the moderate party and the Sweden Democrats themselves can actually form a government, even with support from the Christian Democrats, because the first voters that would shift away from the right-wing coalition into the Sweden Democrats would be from those parties. So if the Sweden Democrats rise 2%, then the Christian Democrats and the Moderate Party would each drop 1%. So I don't think that there would be a significant enough shift from like the center left into the right to potentially support a right-wing government. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to end up with a centrist government. I think that in the end, which people are hoping is going to happen next week, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think that in the end, one of the Liberal parties is going to jump ship, decide that the right-wing alliance is not good anymore, and go into bed with the left. It's a bet, though. I'm not sure about this. But then again, I think it's the most probable scenario, but like anything could happen. If an extra election is called in the end, we might get a right-wing government, but I think that's unlikely. I think it's unlikely that we're going to get an extra election. But if we do, again, like 50-50. Actually, maybe 60-40 to not having it. I think it's a 40% chance maybe that we're going to have an extra election. If it happens, it's going to increase the chances of a right-wing takeover, but it's unlikely. Worst case, the right-wing coalition is somehow going to get more votes than the left-wing coalition, and the left-wing coalition is going to jump ship to the right after an extra election, but that would require that the right-wing coalition gets more votes than the left-wing coalition, which didn't happen in the election, and also the right-wing coalition has destroyed itself and lost support, while the left-wing coalition has kind of just sat there and not much has happened to it. Like, polls are shifting more to the left recently because they are the only ones being professional about this awful, awful thing. While conservative MPs are, they're like, some of them are just calling liberals for like Judas and traitors to the party and everything. But this is only national elections. In local elections, it's been incredibly common that the conservative bloc and the Sweden Democrats have worked together, or just the conservative party has worked together with the Sweden Democrats. That's incredibly common in several local governments. That has happened. Sometimes even in governments when they could just remain with the right-wing coalition and still have a majority, but they decided to, no, we're going to be more conservative instead, which is a shift. There's also been, like, in local elections, the Environmental Party has kind of jump shipped into the right-wing coalition, forming a majority. But that is impossible to happen on the national stage, because the Environmental Party nationally does not have enough support to bring the right-wing coalition into a majority. It's a very small party. Tiny party of environmentalists that no one really likes. No one likes that party. But they got over 4% and they got into government, so you gotta deal with them. Unfortunately. I think most people would just be happier if it if they all voted for like just the Social Democrats or the Left Party or something, because they have basically the same politics. Almost. They're a bit more liberal. Just gonna do like that. Do I have any more questions? This has already been 35 minutes, goddamn. I'm actually gonna record more video after this. And hopefully finish. I'm not gonna edit today, fuck that, but I'm gonna attempt to film it all today. God bless my energy. But first, I'm gonna have a cup of tea. When was the last left-wing government you guys had? Well, that depends on what you define as left-wing. Technically, the last government was part of the left coalition, but the only reason we could have that... Okay, so last election, we had the exact same like parliamentary standoff as we do today. The exact same proportions, the exact same like proportions, kind of. The left wing had a bit more power, but you know, they still have more power now. But when talking about like proportions, it's basically the exact same like thing. The reason we could have a government last election for 4 years ago was because people immediately realized that these parties are incompatible and we will not be able to form a majority government. So what was created then was something they called the December deal, because it was struck in December. We might have something similar to this. And there it was agreed that it was agreed, but we had a government before that. It just that it was in budget proposals. People just accepted the minority government immediately, which was the left coalition, because they had the largest minority, and the parliament just accepted it that almost instantly. Like, oh, you're the largest, let's just go for it. But then budget negotiations came up, and people realized, oh, the right-wing bloc could vote with the Sweden Democrats and have a conservative, reactionary budget under the leadership of Social Democrats. And that's a problem. So to solve this, the December deal was struck, and the December deal was basically this thing where all political parties just agreed that the largest minority party should be able to rule. And rule like in total, right? They should have control as if they were the majority. And this deal was supposed to last now, like even into now, and also apply to the right-wing coalition if they became the largest minority. And this was kind of just to secure secure parliament away from the Sweden Democrats, and not making sure that the Sweden Democrats could not get into power at all, or even into budget negotiations. And it worked for a while, and then the youth wing of the Christian party killed it, because they killed it, and then the main party killed it, and when the Christian Democrats killed it, they are part of the right-wing alliance, the right-wing coalition, and then when one party fell, the others fell too, and then they just ignored the deal. In theory, they still adhered to it in practice by supporting the left-wing budget. But now there's a new election, and people aren't really supporting. Like, the right-wing coalition doesn't support that anymore, because they feel it's unfair. Despite largest minority in an incompatible parliamentary clusterfuck is the most fair you can get, in my opinion, at least. If we reach another December deal, which is extremely unlikely because it was very unpopular, things would be solved and we would have a left-wing government. But I don't think that we're going to have that. And that is kind of so we've had a left-ish wing government now for a while, but the Social Democrats has also been like slowly drifting to the right, which has affected their politics. The last time we had like a truly socialist even government was probably like early 90s or 80s. And ever since the ever since the fall of communism, most political parties have done a drift to the right, because socialist ideas are demonized as being communist. Like all even leftist ideas are demonized, which is a cheap trick that the right uses, but apparently it works. So, which means that like during the the refugee crisis, for example, we had a then we had a leftist government who accepted a lot of people, but then those right-wing elements within the party decided that this is going to make us extremely unpopular, and then they started putting back border controls and everything. And we are in the EU, we're not supposed to have border controls, but we did for a while. We still do technically, I think. So yeah, it kind of depends on what you mean, like left wing. But the left is like the left coalition has, at least they've been in power for the last 4 years. But ever since like 2006 or something, maybe 2002, something like that, the coalition in power has shifted almost every single year. Like the right wing is in power, then the left wing, then the right wing, then the left wing, right wing, then the left wing. It's alternating. However, and that was a new pattern, right? Because it used to be that only the left coalition won, and then maybe some freak year the right wing alliance would win. And then people would be like, "Oh shit, no, we don't like this," and then immediately go back for another 40 years of social democrat rule. That's barely an exaggeration, by the way. Like they ruled Sweden for like 80 years almost continuously, either in coalition with other parties to form a majority, or just in their own majority, which is impressive in a country with 8 political parties to have over 50% in one of them. They're, like, as I said, they're incredibly popular. Traditionally, the left has been divided and the right unified, but this is one instance where the right is also divided. Like the left in Sweden is fairly divided. The only like ideology in Swedish leftism that's kind of shifting away is, outside of Twitter, because everyone hates each other on Twitter. But in real life, it's the environmental party in local government, which are traditionally, they're a little more liberal, and they are they're just like, they want to talk about the environment and saving capitalism, kind of. They're that kind of liberal. So yeah, it's and it's like, it's been like that for a while now. Outside of parliament, the left eats itself like everywhere, but in parliament, it's been pretty unified over the last couple of years. There's been like scares where people are like, "Oh shit, are the social democrats finally gonna turn against the left party because they're too left wing?" And people are always afraid of it, and it never happens. Because the left-wing coalition the left-wing party is just too powerful. They're not super powerful, but they're powerful enough to be like a deciding important part of the coalition. They are more important than the environmental party, almost twice as important, and almost a third as large as the Social Democrats, which is significant. It also means that they get a lot of influence in policy making, which I like. And they used to be in power here where I live, but now they're not, because the environmental party flipped sides, like usually. Boomers seem universally be afraid of left-wing policies because of the Cold War. Yep. Anti-communist propaganda works. Sweden is a bit behind on that because we weren't part of NATO. We didn't really take part that much in Western discourse as much, but I'm actually going to talk about that in the video, by the way, so you should watch that. So Sweden, like, as most of the Western world has kind of shifted towards liberalism being the new left, Sweden still has this like worker movement, socialist, social democratic movement. Like our union movement is incredibly strong. It's being weakened slowly, and I don't want to say that, but like Sweden still has like a powerful workers movement. and I think that is one of the reasons why Sweden is like fairly politically unique. Also, like, you know, we were afraid of the Cold War too, but we had Russian submarines wash up on our shores. Like, we border, kind of. We have a sea border with Russia and the Soviet Union. Like, half of the Baltic Sea was under Soviet Union control. Sweden actually had one instance where the entire Baltic fleet headed towards us, and that's because a very like top secret submarine just crashed on an island here, and we took it, and we took control of it and put the crew in jail. The Soviets did not like that. So yeah, but like, because of that, like, because we weren't part of NATO and we weren't part of the Warsaw Pact, we've been kind of behind on that because we didn't really buy anti-communist propaganda as much. But we were also subjected to a lot of like anti-capitalist propaganda, so it's a lot of that. Sweden is in a weird position in like modern history. Sweden is like in a weird position. Where are so many young people then afraid of left policies and vote Nazis? Or is it just a Finnish thing where the young are also just as divided as the rest of society? I think that, like, you know, you learn from your parents, right? And I think that a lot of young people see the aesthetic appeal of fascism. And like, this is the thing where, like, ContraPoints has talked about this also, that the left needs to be sexier. And it does, because the right wing is sexy in a way that left wing politics isn't. Left wing politics is better, but it's more complicated than blaming everything on a scapegoat. And if you blame everything on a scapegoat, there's an easy, simple explanation, and people like that. I think that young people like I think that like a lot of young people all over, like, I think a lot of young people in Sweden too are very divided. Like, we have a lot of youth Nazis here too. We have, like, what do you call it? Nordic Youth, which is a youth wing of the Nordic resistance movement. Nothing political, but I like me a makeup. I don't have a lot of makeup right now. I have a bit of eyeliner and a bit of foundation, but that's it. I should say, like, all the walls in my room are white, and I have a lot of like different light sources for when I make my video. But they all bounce on the walls, so it gives me a very soft light. So, which gives me like the appearance of a glow and erases all faults. Trust me, I don't look this good normally. Plus, I'm making a video today, so I got a bit dolled up. I have no idea how Swedish politics is going to turn out, like, after a while. I'd assume that, like, it all depends on, I think, Europe. Soft light, soft girl. Soft girls are good, gay is good. True. I think that I think the Cold War kind of really fucked over, like, Western democracy, but it took a couple of years before it to take. The West kind of went overboard with the anti-communism bit, and here we are, afraid of anything that can be construed as leftist. I think it's gonna pass over though. Talking about that, like influences from the past, I think it's gonna blow over after a while. I think it's gonna take a while though. What will happen first? Eco catastrophe from global warming, or social catastrophe from all Europe slowly becoming neoliberal? That's the thing, because I think we're at the beginning of a new left movement. I think this is a bet, and I might be wrong because I live in a bubble of leftist rhetoric. But it feels to me as if the world's being pulled to extremes, right? And I think that I don't think Europe is becoming more liberal. I think Europe has been liberal for a long ass time, but I think it's kind of moving away from that. And in some cases, that's really really bad. We have the then you have America with Trump, you have Brazil with Bolsonaro, and you have Hungary with Orban. And that's just not Europe. That's most of like classical liberal democracies turning right. But I think that also that there is this counter reaction to that. I think it's a bit later, um, to just form like a new workers movement that isn't centered on like the ideals of the past, right? Because we don't have the same workers class the same way we did 100 years ago. 100 years ago, the agricultural class is like a significant portion of the population, even a majority in many cases. That is not the case right now. Like, we don't have an agricultural class. We have farmers, right? Yeah, but they're not a social class in the same way, because there's like 5 of them. And we don't have factory workers in the same way. Like, especially in like Western Europe, we have much more of a service economy. And like classical leftist rhetoric and movements and organization have a hard time incorporating service, like the service profession, as a class statement. And I think that's changing. I think that's slowly becoming more and more like integrated into leftist rhetoric, and I think that's good. So I don't think that that's going to happen first. I think that maybe Europe is going to have a chance, and I think that most of the world is going to have like a slight chance, but historically that hasn't gone super well. But I think I don't think Europe is going to become like slowly more and more neoliberal. I think we've reached like a plateau of that, and I think now we're moving into extremes. And I think we're moving first into right-wing extremes, unfortunately. So I think eco-catastrophe is coming first. That keeps me up at night. Like, I have no idea how the fuck we're gonna survive this. Like, I mean, we are gonna survive it. It's just that the planet is not gonna be the same anymore, and we're gonna have a dystopia because everything is bad, and the oceans are bad, and tornadoes are everywhere, and the sun hates us. So all of that is gonna happen. So first fascism and then eco-catastrophe. Yeah, pretty much. Or maybe eco-catastrophe first and then fascism. That is my prediction. I think we'll have a chance when it comes to fascism to beat it before it becomes super, like, ultra bad. I don't think we have a chance against eco-catastrophes. I think we're fucked. Which sucks, because I do my part, but as long as we live under capitalism, and as long as we live under a system where consumption is the prime goal, I don't see a way that we're gonna fix global climate change. I don't think that's possible. And if scientists are correct, I mean, we're already in for, like, even if we fix everything right now, we're in for sea rise anyway. The rich will be fine in the eco-catastrophe. Yeah, they will. The problem is that the global south is screwed. All the social upheaval caused by people immigrating from unlivable areas is going to be a problem. Yeah, I think Europe is going to be fine, and I think that I'm extremely privileged to live in Sweden. Like, Sweden is one of those countries that isn't going to be impacted super bad by like global warming, because like partially, yeah, it's gonna get warmer, but then the Gulf Stream is gonna shift a bit, and that means Europe, like the north of Europe, is gonna get a bit colder. So maybe it all evens out, or maybe even becomes a bit colder. It's not good at all for us, and it's devastating to our environment here and to the global environment, obviously. But yeah, like most of the world is screwed, I think. Like, just unfortunately, hopefully, and I know this isn't true, but there's a part of me that kind of hopes that like future eco disasters will kind of target the areas that produce it more, like, because they're more fit to handle it. Like if you're gonna have flooding, at least have it in the Netherlands, which can work. And I know that doesn't work. That's not true, because it impacts the entire globe almost equally, which is awful and distressing and sad and depressing, because I think America and I think Europe is going to be fine, kind of. It sucks that the entire world's going to probably not, and I have no idea what the fuck to do about it. Like, I can be on YouTube and I can rant about it, and I feel that maybe can help a bit, but until it's just rich assholes deciding that the world needs to burn in order to make more money. And that's it. Oy. The troubling thing is that China isn't going to be as affected as other major economies. Yeah, so they kind of have an incentive to continue burning carbon. Kind of. China is doing some measures to fix it, but that's mostly because like local environments are being heavily impacted by the Chinese heavy industry, which means that they have an incentive to kind of stop because the population is dying from smoke inhalation. So they're doing some measures to fix it, but again, I have no idea if it's going to be enough. It probably won't be. Is it time to unironically tabby smash? Maybe. I have a hard time with smashing, but fucking honestly, it's I think, like, I believe in reform as a concept, right? I think revolution is kind of bad, because people die, and that's a bad thing. However, reform takes time, and we don't have time. People are like already being very much impacted by the climate crisis, and while we reform, obviously capitalism is going to reform to counter that, as it has for the last 200 years. Like, every time you try to adapt capitalism to work better, it adapts back to fix it. Like, oh, you have minimum wage laws, and then they adapt with like, oh well, you're a contractor, you're not an employee. You have hours guaranteed so that you don't, so that you have a job, and also you have a job guaranteed. Well, here comes the gig economy then. Like, every single thing that you can throw at capitalism, it will throw it right back at you with a solution of its own. And that's just because it's an incredibly complex system that we have created. And because we have created it, it's just bullshit anyway. Which means that you can just bullshit it away with another bullshit explanation. And it just works for capitalism, not for the earth. It sucks that like the super rich are gonna be like fine no matter what, right? And they know it. They know, like, you don't buy bunkers in New Zealand that you can live in for 400 years or something if you don't know the global climate change is coming and is gonna lead people to come after you. Like, you don't. Especially in New Zealand, when they build, like, if they live in Silicon Valley and they buy bunkers in New Zealand, they are not fearing like a nuclear war. They're fearing social upheaval caused by climate crisis. All the system in place kill just passively. Yeah, that's partially by design too. Slow workers take up space, take up resources, need fast workers. In Cali, we just had a week of literally poisonous air from all the major fires we've been having. Oh, damn. Yeah, I've read about that. Like, I've seen a bit of it on Twitter and stuff. Sounds rough. I can't really relate. We had like a forest fire epidemic in Sweden this year too, but not nearly as bad, I can imagine. Here in Sweden, it's a forest fire epidemic if we have like 8 of them. Small contained ones. That's just like, oh my god, here. California, it seems so much more. And it doesn't seem to end either. And then we have Donald Trump being an asshole online about it. Goddamn. Howdy. I'm from Texas, but my family from Cali are pretty worried, even though they're pretty far away. I can imagine. Like, forest fires fuck up a lot. They can spread super quick, and they pump out poisonous air. It's gonna be G20. In Argentina, it's gonna be G20. I don't know what that means. Like, I know the G20 thing, but in Argentina? I might miss a reference. Did you see what Trump said about how Finland prevents forest fire by sweeping the forest floor? Yeah, we used to be known as a land of 100,000 lakes. Now we're a land of 100,000 rigs. I mean, yeah. I saw that. Sounds fun. It's just so weird though. Like, Donald Trump is such an incredibly weird person. Like, he's not just a bad. Oh shit, G20. Oh, G20 is gonna come to Argentina? Oh damn, I can imagine protests. Because wherever G20 goes, there's always big old protests. I think were they in Hamburg last time? Because I remember things being bad there too. That's not too far from Sweden, so I remember like Swedish pundits being like assholes about it. Where people were like, you know, oh damn, these leftists, they go out and they protest capitalism. How dare they? How dare they? How dare they be against something that has fucked them over? How dare they? It's weird. Wow. Our security minister told people from Venezuela to leave during the G20. Jesus Christ. Concerning. But understandable, I guess. I don't know. Yo, like, politics is fucked. Everything with politics is so bad right now. Yeah, I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better. But I think it's gonna get better. Slowly. Hopefully it won't be too late. If it is too late, fuck. Although I'm still betting on my retirement plan, which is get a fuck ton of patrons, buy a yacht, recreate Waterworld. Yeah. So people, my god, this is a recipe in Argentina for like massive protests, right? Because we have workers in financial troubles during a G20 meeting, stuck in the same city as the G20 meeting, with concerns from above that things might go bad. Like, this is a recipe for chaos, unfortunately. Hopefully it turns out okay. Hopefully it's just big peaceful protests. How can I become as optimistic as you? I don't know. Like, I have no idea. I think that, like, humanity has faced similar crises, but not when it comes to environmental problems, right? Has faced similar crises, and only twice has it led to world wars, which is a bad statistic, but hopefully things will sort themselves out. I think what gives me hope is that society isn't as militaristic today as it was 100 years ago. Outside of America, at least, things just aren't as military as they are. Not just in Europe, but like throughout the world, which is one of the reasons that we have fewer wars. And just because of that, I think that it's I think it's gonna be fine. I don't think it's gonna be World War III. I don't think so. I think it's gonna be a lot of social unrest, potentially like long term. I think maybe like I think it's gonna be a lot of social unrest, but I think things are gonna calm down after that. Not eco-catastrophe though. I'm not optimistic when it comes to global warming. I'm very pessimistic about that. I'm preparing for water world. Actually, I'm gonna answer that question. What kind of yacht? I'm getting a big old sailing yacht that costs like 200 million euros. If you don't know that about me, by the way, I love boats. I love ships. I love sailing because I used to be part of like a sailing club thing. It wasn't part of like the rich people sailing club. It was the sailing club for people who wanted to join the navy. So I sailed a lot as a teenager and as a young adult, and because of that, I've been looking at pictures of yachts all day because I want one, despite knowing that they are a symbol of opulent wealth, that are a really awful thing to have. But I want one. I want a big boat. Most likely, though, I'm just gonna build my own one day. Like, just get a sheep yard at a junkyard or something, and just build my own yacht. It's gonna sink after a while, but it's gonna be mine. Life finds a way. World War Z. Hopefully not. Well, that's the point. The military isn't going to do another coup here. The last one was worse, yeah. Like, it's still not unheard of, like, that, like, military coups happen and stuff. And it can happen. It's just that, like, people... Like, the military just used to be this, like, insane part, like, proportionally to the rest of the population, right? It used to be, like, a really large part of the population. Like, almost everyone was a soldier. If you were like an able-bodied young man, it's like a 1 in 3 that you're in the army to like any developed nation 100 years ago. That is not the case anymore. Again, with the exception for America, and I'm sorry, America is still like very militaristic, but most of the world doesn't have that, and because since the World War and since the Cold War, like warfare has shifted in such a way that you don't really need big standing armies anymore, because that's not how you fight other nations anymore, which is a like a very neutral thing when it comes to like war and stuff, because now we have nukes instead. But a standing army is how you do a military coup. It's hard to nuke your way into a coup. Which means that, you know, I think that makes things more stable and allows for more social unrest in a way, and I think it leads to less conflict, more social unrest in a good way, which means that things might not be super clean, but at least I don't suspect like big wars to be fought over the ideologies of today. I know yacht people, so oh shit, goddamn, hook me up, yo. Humanity will survive, but I'm afraid societies won't. Some extreme predictions say that human population will fall to about 10 million. That's a pessimistic outlook. I hope that's not true. Goddamn, that would basically mean a world population of Sweden, and there's no one here. Anyway, Sweden is already empty. If we were to cover the entire world, which is 10 million people, goddamn, that's no one. But that's very pessimistic. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think more people will survive. Even in worst case scenarios, I think people will survive. Unless we go like big asteroid, but we can't stop that, so not with climate change. So what do you want about Bernie? It's made closeted socialist Marxists like me to be more open about my politics. Yeah, that's actually one of the good things. I think also like Jeremy Corbyn in the UK has done more openly socialist things. Just even saying the word socialism has become more accepted today than it was just a couple of years ago, because then it just like, when you talk about socialism, people immediately go to like to the Soviet Union, which at that point is seen as very dangerous. Today people point at like Venezuela, which is okay, but it's not like the major threat to like the Western society and NATO as communism once was. We don't fight wars over like containing communism anymore, thankfully. And I think it's just good that we are allowed to talk more about like leftist ideas and leftist politics, and even saying that you are a Marxist, even saying to read Marx, is good. Talking about capitalism is good. I think that just talking about these things are good and normalizes leftist discourse in society. I think. I might be wrong. I say that to everything, I realize. I'm right. Let's say it like that. If just people could do magic, all would be easier. Yeah. That's why I kind of like, I just lost my thread entirely. American military is also the biggest polluter on the planet. That's true. When people talk about like polluting, they usually point to companies, right? But that's because like a lot of militaries don't disclose their pollution because they don't need to. They're military. Why would they need to? They display cost. They don't display pollution. But you know, militaries pollute a lot. Of course they do. When people talk like how flying is like makes a lot of exhaust. Commercial airliners are the cleanest way to fly compared to, you know, every kind of single fighter jet or bomber thing, or just even making weapons pollutes a lot. Like all of these things are just polluting so much, but they don't report that. And that is a significant part of pollution. And if you can just like reduce the military spending, then things would just be better just by that. And I think that if we did that in conjunction with like anti-capitalist reforms as well, we probably have a much better chance at tackling climate change than we do by just doing anti-capitalist reform. Because a lot of like the projections, they only deal with like, okay, if we ignore the military because we don't have the data, how much of our society would we need to change? And it would be a lot. But if we wouldn't need to change that much if we just like got rid of the military. Now I'm not saying that is the best idea. Might be. I don't like the military at all, and you know that. But it would help a lot with the environment, and the environment is the greatest threat right now, not like invasion from China or something. I like to think the modern political sphere is too incompetent to even start another world war. You'd be surprised how incompetent people were in the past. Like, that is the thing that I kind of love when people talk about Donald Trump as Donald Trump is a dumbass, right? He's a dumbass. And people talked about him as he's this extreme outlier. He's a bit of an outlier, but he's not that much of an extreme. Like, America elected an actor once. Like, Ronald Reagan is, to me, just as crazy of a choice as Donald Trump. Because he's a reality TV star. And Ronald Reagan's an actor. Ronald Reagan is for some reason remembered as one of the greatest presidents of all time. Which is bonkers to me, because Reagan is so weird. You've had, like, I'm just saying that America has had weirder presidents, and so has, like, Europe has had their own, like, bonkers world leaders. Like, we've always been pretty incompetent. It's just that we can see everything. Like, we can see everything. Like, we can, like, in the past, at least, when you wrote someone, you didn't live stream anything, like, you wrote a letter. That takes time to formulate, and it sounds more professional. But if I were to do, like, if I lived 100 years ago, I would probably do this. I would still do like political commentating, political like leftist thing, right? And if I did that, I would probably like publish them in a book, which means that after like I would probably be seen as more legitimate in the future, despite me being just as much of a dumbass as people in the past. Like when people say that like Karl Marx and Lenin, for example, are like all these great thinkers. You have to remember that they spend a lot of time in bars getting drunk and fighting because they're dumbasses with some ideas that they just put into a book because that's the way to broadcast the thing. So when people talk about like YouTubers taking over, like leading a revolution, that's not that unlikely actually, because journalists were the YouTubers of the past, kind of, and they have done that. Like YouTube, like journalists have become revolutionaries easily, and that used to be weird. It's not anymore. So when people say like YouTuber president 2024, it can happen. I know it's an 8 out, but I need my company / young food mentality, I guess. Oh, sorry. Sorry for going up around there. Well, I think one of the good things about like having this, that everything is much more quicker and much like live, is that we have a better check on everyone else, right? It's harder to hide who you are. It's harder to hide your ideology from other people, which means that if you are a presidential candidate, or like an activist or politician or an influencer or a political thinker or something, if people want to know your opinion on something, that they can find it out, and like an opinion on anything, and that's kind of hard to do in like for other thinkers unless they publish a bunch of books and newsletters and everything, which means that, you know, we have checks and balances between the state and the people becomes better, and that's good. That's a good thing. People sometimes say that the advancements of technology will make this state oppression easier. I think that that's partially true, but it's also true that like rapid developing technology will also make governments holding their people holding their governments accountable will be easier. So that's good. America takes run on jet fuel? What? YouTuber president. Franz von Papen is like the poster child for incompetence, yeah. YouTuber president followed by gamer president. Hell yeah! Like, goddamn, that's the worst thing. John Trump for president. No. Why? Good God. Innuendo Studios for president. Yeah, he's pretty good. He's nice. Innuendo is like, he's fun. He's one of the people who inspired me to start my own YouTube thing. Like, I usually talk about like counterpoints inspiring me the most, and that's probably true. But Innuendo Studios did this Gamergate thing, talking about why are you so angry. It's a 5-part series. It's great. You should go watch it after this. It talks about like deconstructing an argument and talking about evidence in a very good way. He talks about like why people are so angry on the internet over things that have no evidence behind them, and it deconstructs the entire ideology of Gamergate and most online reactionary movements into a very good video. It's really good. It's incredibly good, actually. And I actually remember contacting him over one of my earliest YouTube ideas that I made in ye olde 2013. They're like, hey, I was thinking about maybe doing a feminist frequency thing, but with a bit more like narrative art style and a bit more thing, a little bit more analytical. And I was, you inspired me, so was it okay if I kind of do the same shtick as you do? And he was like, yeah, go for it. And then I didn't. And then I waited until I saw ContraPoints, and I decided, oh, god damn it, I can't just be inspired over and over and over again over the years. So here I am again. This is I think my 4th or 3rd YouTube channel, but this is the one I like. Sorry. That's a bit of a rant on Universal Studios, a channel that I really like and that you should go and watch. He's very clever. That's cool. I love my rants. Yeah, most of my fans seem to like my rants. That's my brand. US tanks and Saudis, because that's the only ones other countries sold them to. Useless because they can afford to. What the fuck? That seems unreliable in like total war. So in another timeline, ContraPoints is actually you. I wish. I relate a lot to ContraPoints, like a lot, because partially we're both trans women, partially we both used to belong to like the atheist community. We both watched Cinia Jones like since forever, etc. And I love ContraPoints. It sucks that I like focused on other things instead of doing my YouTube thing, because that is something that I've wanted to do for like almost a decade now. And when I finally did start doing it, I became sick and couldn't do it much. But I'm back now. Anyway, the point is, I wish that I started like a long time ago doing like political things and doing like analysis things, because partially because I could have become a bit bigger at this point. I still love you. I still love my fans. But yeah, like I become so envious when I see, like, I can see like most YouTube creators that are like, when they become like super popular and do stuff like that, and they get articles and everything, I was like, oh, good for them, I love that. But when ContraPoints get it, I become like this, like, that could have been me. That could have been me. But it wasn't. But also, she's into philosophy and I'm into history, so different things. Plus, I'm younger than her. That's not to say like that that's not just, there's no value judgment there. That's literally like she has more experience than I do at life, and I felt that her videos are good. I was about to say better than mine, but I'm not allowed to say negative things about myself because that makes me feel bad. And also my fans keep correcting me. You keep correcting me when I do that. It's just that she does other things than I want to do. But I know that if I keep, and I hope I do, if I keep doing my channel like for a couple of years, I know that I'm just gonna end up like almost ripping off ContraPoint word by word. Like, I can't wait until I just pour milk all over myself and dress up in drag just to do political commentary about pronouns or something. One day. Probably not. Maybe. We'll see. Y'all both pretty awesome. Thank you. I think Mia looks better today. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not, like, I have energy for once, which is nice. Like, during most streams that I've had for like the last month or something, I've been really tired. Today I have a lot of energy. I even managed to shoot something today. Like, let's see. I can actually show something off. Like, this is my setup thing. There's a lamp. There's another lamp. That's the camera. That's my tripod. And here's me again. A philosophy perspective is often good, but as a historian, I was thinking perspective is awesome. Thank you. I think like, I just think that leftist philosophers are in right now. Because it's not just ContraPoints, right? PhilosophyTube and like a lot of leftist philosophers, people on YouTube have been gaining a lot of traction, and I think that, like, I get it. I get it. I just think that I'm a bit worried that people will start thinking that political commentary is only for philosophers, because philosophers have this thing, and ContraPoints does this too. I love her. She is my dark mother. But all philosophers have this, outside and inside of academia, where theory matters more than practice. And one thing that we learned in history, at least that I did, was that theory doesn't fucking matter. All theories are broken and nothing is real. Do you think that left tube is rising more and more? Yeah, I think so. With the era of anti-SJWs might be coming to an end. I don't think it's coming to an end. I think it's just going to keep growing. I don't think that the rise of left tube is it's just a reaction to like right-wing Nazis being on YouTube. I don't think it's just that. I think it's partially that. Like, I think it's partially that like the left has become like more aware of YouTube, and the left is more allowed to like talk about leftist ideas without being seen as extremists, and that is one point. The other point I think is that just that more and more people have access to YouTube and have time to watch YouTube videos, because like, no offense to like the right, but a little bit of offense, a lot of people who do right-wing YouTube are just people who sit in their basements and talk and don't do anything else. That's literally their entire job. They have no aspirations or life goals. And most people on the left have better things to fucking do. I mean, I don't. But that's because I'm sick and also a piece of shit. But I think that a lot of people on the left have just more time to do things. I think it's just a time issue. But it's also like the rise of politics on YouTube. It's like the anti-SJW, like the anti-crowd or whatever you're gonna call them. They've been on YouTube for years, like decades even, but they haven't always talked politics. They've talked about like comedy or being anti something else, and that's not the same thing as being pro something else. I think it's fairly easy to be like anti-SJW if you just do videos where you dunk on the right, which I've done, and so has H-Bomber Guy, and so has ContraPoints, and so has Sean, and so has like everyone on LeftTube has done that. But that's easy. The hard part is talking about something that you are for, something that you are pro, or discussing like a concept that's not really related to other YouTubers. But the right-wing YouTubers, they are dependent on this. It's not just that they do politics, it's that they do social commentary, they do YouTube drama, they do a variety of things that people get hooked on. So if you don't get hooked on the politics bit, then you're gonna get hooked on like their atheism bit, or you're gonna get hooked on some other bit, and yeah. So the right has just been doing this longer. And they do more diverse things, and the left is catching on. I think, I hope. We need more left tubers who sit and drink whiskey and then don't take any sips. Actually, oh wait, I can't reach that right now. Fuck it. I'm gonna close out the stream in about 8 minutes, I think, because I've been streaming for almost an hour and a half. I need to grab a bite to eat and maybe something to drink, and then maybe I'm gonna shoot more today. Maybe I'm gonna shoot a bit like more tomorrow to finish up my video, and because it's getting pretty late. I still have energy though. Like, can I just say how amazing it is to have been like, okay, so I've been like out of commission for like a month and felt like trash, and I was tired all the time and everything was awful. But now I can, I woke up early. I ate breakfast, I ate lunch, I've eaten dinner. I could clean, I've done dishes, I've done laundry, I can take care of myself, I can do the stream and be happy. I can even shoot a video, I can set up everything. Like, it's like someone has turned a switch in my head, and now suddenly things are easy again. Things aren't hard anymore. Granted, I still don't have enough energy as I did during the springtime when I actually did videos, because then I had more energy. But like, still, I'm getting better. Maybe, hopefully, I won't crash tomorrow. Because if I crash tomorrow, the video is gonna be even more late, and then I'm gonna feel bad about that. However, and I say this because I love you, if it does become late, I warned you. and it might become late because I don't know what my health is gonna do. Maybe my health will be super bad and everything is trash and I won't be able to finish up the video. That might happen. Hopefully it won't, but if it does, you should know that. Also, speaking of that, there is a post on my Patreon, if you're a patron of mine, that kind of deals with that. It's a bit old right now, so you need to scroll down a bit. But it deals with how I'm changing my Patreon thing related to that. I'm just saying that there might not be a video. But I think there will be, but there might not. But I think there will be. I'm very extremely optimistic, but I've been that before, so maybe, but I'm very optimistic. Okay. I do see more and more anti-SJW towards SJW comments on both YouTube and Reddit. Reddit has become like surprisingly woke. I think that's partly also because of like better moderating on Reddit. YouTube is still a trash fire, I think. I see some good things, but I think also that's because we're part of a community that like LeftTube is only one of several like leftist circles, right? Because there are a bunch of like channels that just don't do the same thing as, you know, Counterpoints and H-Bomber Guy and Sean and, you know, in the studio and stuff. They're all in the same like vein of YouTube, but there are many others that we're not part of. So it might be that we're just in the sphere, but this sphere has also become incredibly popular. So I think Counterpoints is like to blame, kind of. She does a lot of good shit, and she's very popular these days. And I'm envious because that could have been me. The right has a lot more well-funded paid shields. I mean, yeah, like right-wingers are generally richer. So of course, I think it's because the SJW definition has been so sustained. I have a lot of comments. Oh my god, this is the first. Can I say I'm very happy? This is the first time I've ranted so much. I need to scroll down. Like I need to scroll up to get the comments, so I don't miss any. Good god, this is a good problem for me to have. The SJW has been spread so thin that the only thing that's consistent is the anti-SJW types. Pretty much, everyone is called an SJW these days. It's not an accident that people like Steven Crowder have so many viewers. Yeah, the left needs more heels because some YouTubers and creators play it a bit too nice and we don't have a proper heel, like an official anti-fascist speaker. I mean, I'm a cult leader. Wonderful leader, feeling better, thank you. Glad you're feeling better, thank you. Better help, better practice, hell yeah. Mia, you're the only one stressing about getting it on schedule. Don't worry about it, health first videos later. God damn it, I know this! I should check that. Sending more happy magic trans energy to you. Thank you. Lindsay Ellis is definitely a lefty, but to put her on LeftTube instead of FilmTube is a bit off. Exactly. Like I never really knew her as a film critic, as a leftist. Like I always known her as a film critic, and even some of the more recent videos that are like arguably a bit more political are still about film criticism. However, Lindsay Ellis is still like within the same sphere that we are, right? Because everyone who watches H-Bomber Guy and watches Counterpoints also watches Lindsay Ellis, which is good. And it's kind of like it's one of those diagrams with the circles and they overlap a bit, and Lindsay Ellis is in that overlap, and I like that. God, I like Lindsay Ellis. Good content. I've spent a significant portion of this time right now, probably more than half an hour, talking about not Swedish election politics. So I'm sorry for any like viewers coming in from the future who were hoping to get like a live stream talking about the Swedish election, or maybe a student from the future who does an essay on the Swedish election this year. I'm sorry if you've sat through this stream expecting an hour and a half of politics. It's still politics, it's just not Sweden election politics, but that's fine. I'm often finding artistic inspiration second. Contemplate, have you seen some of Natalie's behavior on Twitter? I have. Yeah, she has some shit it takes. I'm not gonna talk too much about counterpoints. Counterpoints is like, I like counterpoints in general, but some of her takes are just like, please don't. I mean, yeah, like some of the stuff that she said on Twitter is inexcusable. Like, I still defended her, but I've also like criticized her. I think it's important. Like, she's not perfect, and I don't think we should expect her to be. I think that in general she's good. I don't think she's like been too weird though. Although that's not my point to say, because the things that she said are generally about like non-binary people and trans men, and I don't really like. I'm a binary trans woman. I'm not affected by that, so I can't really say. But like, yeah, when she agreed with a take that said that trans women have male privilege presentation, like that's a hot spicy take, Contra. That's maybe not the best take. But I tweeted about that. Like, I said that I don't think, like, again, I like Contra. I think that she's nice. I think that she's a good person, and I think she has good politics. But sometimes she has these weird moments of when she has a bad take and walks back on it and doesn't actually deal with the criticism, and that sucks. But don't harass her, good God. Like, okay, I'm actually gonna stop talking about ContraPoints because ContraPoints come up every now and then. It's a complicated topic, right? Like, I think that my video, like a much older video now, where I talk about the like it's very diplomatically named "The Left That Doesn't Care About Trans Women." I should probably change the name of that, but I probably won't. Kind of deals with this idea of perfection from people, but like I think it's unfair to expect. Yeah, the left shouldn't really eat ourselves because we're really bad at this. I think it's fine to acknowledge that she has some bad takes and she has some bad politics, and that's fine. And as every time I bring this up, I am also a shitty person sometimes, and you should know that. So don't put me on a pedestal, because I'm also a shithead. So if I ever become like really popular and I don't know, I'm on the cover of Times Magazine and they give me a New Yorker article or something, you should know that I'm saying this right now, that I'm an asshole. It doesn't excuse. It's just that prepares you for the eventual day that I'm gonna have a bad take on Twitter, because it's gonna happen one day. I have no idea what it's gonna be about. I have no idea what I'm gonna say. I have no idea what I'm gonna think about it, but it's probably gonna happen. Most likely. Although, like, valid criticism is still a thing. I'm not saying this to like, oh, you shouldn't criticize. You should. You 100% definitely should. But to do that criticism with the understanding that we're all imperfect people. Trying to understand an imperfect world. Exactly. I really shouldn't like bring up these hot take topics during streams every goddamn time. I'm actually gonna stop talking about ContraPoints. I just want, the reason she came up was, I guess, like, you know, I wanted to, you know, she's an inspiration. And so seems Sterling. Yeah, dealing criticism shouldn't be the disbanding of this fellowship. Yeah, I think that, like, as long as people are allowed to make good criticism, I think it's fine. And she should deal with it. Well, like, her latest video kind of like talked about it a bit, and it felt like she at least understood some of it. So, okay, we're moving on. Actually, it's past half, so I'm actually gonna quit this. But I do want to turn the mood around, because now we're talking about like hot takes and stuff like that, and I want to be a bit more positive before I go. Do we have any questions about the Swedish election? or politics in general. God damn, I'm feeling my face just peel off. I am going to drink a big jug of tea after this stream and probably eat some bread. Me whenever the Swedish election brought up, are we here yet? We're never gonna be there. We're never gonna have an election. Oh my god, here come the questions. Jesus Christ. I'm gonna finish up these questions. Hopefully there won't be too long rants, and hopefully we can leave on a happy note. We're never gonna have a government ever. We have descended into having a continuous interim government forever. Any thoughts on the recent UK snafu? The recent UK snafu? I'm thinking Brexit. Has something new happened? Is it Northern Ireland again? Is it the border? Is it like talking about the recent UK snafu is such a like you're talking to an historian. It could be anything. The UK does so much things. Did you hear about Beto O'Rourke? I've heard. Isn't he the Texan guy? Senator? Who lost? Beto O'Rourke. Congressional District for Texas. Yeah. I've heard about him. I've seen him around. I don't think he's super radical. Like I've seen a lot of American leftists be like, "Oh, he's the new Bernie Sanders or something," and I was like, "Oh, he seems nice. He seems like a nice guy." But Beto O'Rourke seems just, I don't know. He seems just like a guy. He's the most bland guy I can think of, honestly. He doesn't do anything, but like the most blandest guy I can think of is probably a better politician than the alternative. How much damage can a right-wing government do to the country? Not much. Most damage is done on the local level. Like, the thing that they can probably fuck up the most is like welfare things, and that's gonna suck if the right wing gets into politics here. Because welfare is already, like, the welfare system here is already kind of in crisis because it's not a budgetary thing, it's not like an overflow thing, it's nothing to do with that. It's literally all about like poor management. Not on the government side, but just on like the specific like department that has been continuously fucking up over the last like 2 or 3 years. And it could probably be solved by having a much larger budget, but that's not really something that's going to happen, especially not with the right-wing government. So it would just make an ongoing crisis worse. So I don't think too much is going to happen, honestly. I don't think that too much damage can happen, but I think like it's going to be foreign policy, and it's going to be the border, and it's going to be our relationship with the EU, and it's going to be the long-term economy. And the long-term economy is probably going to, I mean, they're probably going to like, they've talked about like privatizing more and more companies and things, and that's what it is. Yeah, Beto was the running candidate, and he was pretty damn awesome. Yeah, like, I haven't seen that much of him, though. As far as Texas go, he might as well be called Marx. Fair enough, maybe. I don't know enough about, like, Texan politics to say. He seems nice, though. Like, I could have a beer with him, probably. He seems nice. The last week in Brexit, though, I'm not sure. Was it like, oh yeah, right. Goddamn. Because the proposal was put to, yeah, the guy who negotiated the Brexit deal didn't like it and resigned, and now you have a new Brexit minister. Much of the cabinet has resigned. Some parts of the EU doesn't like it. There are significant parts of the UK that doesn't like the deal. Many ministers, both within the party, don't like the deal. Like from members of the opposition, don't like the deal. Like, I think honestly that either Brexit is gonna get solved like next week, or Brexit is, or it's just gonna be like a no deal Brexit. That's what I'm thinking. Seen any good movies or TV shows lately? That's the last question, by the way. Sorry. Seen any good movies or TV shows lately? Recently? I think it's called Rebellion. Maybe it's about the Easter Rebellion in Ireland. It's a miniseries, and it seemed pretty good. I didn't pay like ultra much attention, but it seemed pretty good. I'm like in an Ireland phase currently, and it's pretty good. Houston Spirit Centers, but they are Democrat socialists, and you're looking for one of the more leftist citizens. You say Austin's the place. Oh yeah, Houston's the place, which was half of Sweden. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm sitting on the floor and can't wait to stand up and drink some tea and stretch my back, and then I'm gonna maybe finish up the video, or maybe I'm gonna go to bed. Either or. This has been a nice stream. Many good questions. Sorry if I missed a comment. Like, for the first time in my streaming career, maybe, I guess, I've had the problem where it's just too many comments sometimes to sort out. So I might have missed a comment, and I apologize for that. Hopefully, things are gonna work out good. Next week, I think, next weekend, I'm gonna have the start of December. Actually, I'm gonna have the last Patreon AMA that goes for like November. It's in December because the week stops at a Friday, so fuck that. So I'm just gonna go into the next month. So Saturday I'm gonna have the Patreon AMA. If you are a patron of mine, that means you can send me questions and I will answer them on stream, and it can be about anything. The day after that, Saturday, in 8 days, I'm gonna have the November Google Hangout, which means that if you are a fan of mine, you don't have to be a patron, you can just be a fan. You can join me in Google Hangout and we can talk about topics. Hopefully, I can actually do what I wanted to do with the Hangout and discuss the topic of the video of the same month. So if everything goes super well, I'm gonna be able to release this goddamn video and we can talk about it on Hangout. If not, I'm just gonna pick a topic like Saudi Arabia or something. We already talked about Saudi Arabia, but something like that. And that can be good. So, I'm gonna shut down the stream now. Thank you so much for watching. You can, if you're not subscribed to my live stream channel, please feel free to do so. If you're not subscribed to my main channel, you should be able to do that. You can always just Google up or just YouTube my name, Mia Mulder. It should pop up fairly easily. Or it's also in the link on my Twitter. You can just click there and you can click subscribe, and you can hit the little bell thing and all the other things that you're supposed to say at the end of a stream, I guess. Thank you so much. I'll see you fairly immediately, actually, because I'm probably going to be on Twitter for a while.